I'm Cathryn, and this is the Dancing Heart Project. I want to share my personal story about my new life after heart transplant. I get this question a lot because I, quote unquote, look healthy, and I am pretty young, I guess, in people's eyes for someone who might need a heart transplant. I was born with congenital heart disease. I had multiple defects in my heart. Eventually, I did have open heart surgery at age 18, had a modified Fontan procedure. I also had had several strokes. I went into liver failure. I had revisions of my original heart surgery. I had multiple pacemakers. I had valvular disease, where the valves in your heart don't work properly. And I also didn't have a regular aorta. So ultimately, my heart went into failure about 3 years after my last open heart surgery. And my organs all started shutting down. And at that point, the doctors had actually originally told me that I wasn't a heart transplant candidate, and that once my heart reached that point, that would basically be it. But because I lasted as long as I did, there had been advances made in the world of transplant and congenital heart disease. So there were some places that were starting to offer options for people like me. In 2013, I was in Miami in the children's hospital there, and doctors had basically given me the bad news that my heart was failing, my organs were shutting down, and we needed to look for alternatives. They didn't have any more options there. So they started looking around for various locations that may be able to do a heart and a liver transplant, because at that point, that's what they believed I needed. And there are very limited places in the United States for that. So my original search didn't really turn up too much, at least in Florida. So we started to reach out around the country, and I eventually I found 5 centers around the United States that were willing to kind of take a look at me and at least give me some advanced heart failure options and review whether or not I might be a good candidate for a transplant. And eventually I settled on Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. Typical is really a difficult situation because really there's not a good answer to that question. The best way that I can answer it is I've known people that have waited a day, and I've known people that have waited 10 days, and I've known people that have waited 2 years. Me personally, I waited 75 days, and it took a very long time for me to get on the list, almost twice as long as it did for me to wait for a heart. And it really depends on where you're listed, how severe your condition is, what your health status is, and basically the sicker you are, the higher up on the list you go. And that's kind of a simple answer to a pretty complicated question. But in my case, I waited most of my stay at home. I did go in and out of the hospital, but the medications that they normally would put you on in the hospital really weren't an option for me. They actually made my heart get worse. So I opted to be at home, even though it put me a little at a disadvantage because it lowered my chances of getting a heart, because the sickest people are usually in the hospital. But for me, waiting at home was where I needed to be. And I didn't actually wait at home. I waited with family, extended family members, while my family lived in Florida. The phone call, it's not exactly like it is in movies, but it is actually a pretty remarkable experience. And everyone that I talk to remembers their story. They know exactly where they were, what they were doing, exactly what time it was. And for me, I actually was, I was asleep, and it was about 5:30 in the morning, and my phone rang. And when you get a phone call at 5:30 in the morning and you're waiting for a heart transplant, you're pretty sure that this must be a phone call. And my transplant coordinator came on the phone and she said, Cathryn, we have a heart for you. The doctors have been working all night, and so you need to get to the hospital within the next hour. And so get going, because at that point I was staying about 45 minutes to an hour away, so that didn't really give us a lot of lead time. They always tell you to have your bag packed and ready to go, keep it in your car, make sure you have what you need. But after you've been waiting for a while, you need stuff out of the bag. And I kind of thought, well, I'll get it ready by the time we need to go somewhere. So that morning, I literally jumped out of bed and I just started throwing things in the suitcase and running, as best I could around the room, trying to gather my things and figure out what I would need to bring to the hospital. And honestly, I didn't even think about it. All I thought about was, well, I'll probably need stuff to do because I'll probably be there for a while. And then I remembered that I needed to wake the other people in the household up to get me to the hospital. So I ran into my brother and sister-in-law's bedroom, and I, banged on the door, and I was like, guys, I got a heart. And they were sound asleep, and my sister-in-law had actually just been in a show and had her big closing night party, so they had just gotten home only a couple hours before this. So they came and like, what do you want? And everyone was running around. And it was kind of like those moments that, when you're having a baby and everyone's just in a panic trying to run around and get you to where you need to go. And I eventually did get to the hospital, obviously, on time. And that was a pretty comical experience as well, because my sister-in-law kept trying to make my brother-in-law drive faster. And I said, no, let's just get there safely. And my brother-in-law was like, yep, we're going to get there safely. And we did. We got there safely. And I wore my tiara to the hospital because I just felt like it was a very important day. And I was ready for my heart. And we got there, and within seconds of walking in, people were whisking me away for tests, and I was in surgery several hours later. And it was a pretty remarkable experience. I didn't get to say goodbye to my family at home. My daughter, my son, my husband, my mom, my brother, all of them were thousands of miles away from me. And so I called each one of them and let them know before I put it out on social media that they had a heart for me. And those were hard phone calls. I guess I was really thankful for FaceTime and Skype, being able to say, basically, I'll see you later, is what I told everyone. I didn't say goodbye. I was prepared for that, I guess, actually, but I felt good about it, and I felt like the right heart would be there for me, and it surely has been.